Welcome back to Master Your Ash. I'm your host, Michael Prisdale, and today I'm going to be pairing the Ashton VSG Illusion. This is a beautiful 6.5 by 44 Lonsdale cigar with Wild Turkey, Kentucky Spirit. And for this pairing, I chose the Ashton VSG just because of its significance in the world of cigars. I was never much of an Ashton fan just in the classic series, but when the VSG came out and was released in the early kind of mid-2000s, I was an instant fan. I smoked pretty much all of the Wizard, Enchantment, Illusion line. They've always been some of my favorite sticks for a very long time. And this was kind of a combination effort between two of the most famous families that I've had on the channel as far as features and reviews in the Fuente family and the Oliva family. So Oliva, the V Milanio, the normal V line, all of the wonderful Oliva sticks over the years, as well as the Fuente with the 858, the Hemingway short story, Anejo Shark. You know, there's so many of them, and I'm happy to just kind of get back around to some of the other brands that they've either collaborated on together or worked on individually. Another combination effort or family effort is the Wild Turkey Kentucky Spirit. So this has Jimmy Russell and Eddie Russell's signature on every single bottle. This bourbon whiskey is bottled on from barrel this, rick house number. They include all of that information right here at the bottom. But essentially, this is a single barrel of Wild Turkey 101. So 50.5 proof, or 50.5% alcohol by volume, 101 proof, bleh, on every single bottle. Kentucky straight bourbon. Single barrel. Why is single barrel significant? Well, depending upon who the bourbon producer is, they could have rick houses that have, 50 barrels going into a bourbon, or they could have a rick house where 5,000 barrels are going into a bourbon. So single barrels and barrel proofs and different kinds of expressions have come out recently that have caught fire because people like having just a one-off kind of singular expression and have it be that snowflake that's never going to exist ever again. It's just that one particular barrel. Most of the liquor stores now, like your Costco's, Total Wines, Bevmo's, Lee's, so on and so forth, even local ones that I don't even know about in your local area, they might get proposed to have like a store pick where they actually go to one of these bourbon companies and they get a one barrel expression just for that store. So typically, you can get about 35 to 40 cases in a standard kind of bourbon barrel. So that's plenty to where one store, one restaurant, one location can purchase the full lot of that barrel, and then they'll put their label on it, and that will only be available at that retailer. Smells a lot like Wild Turkey 101. Tastes a lot like Wild Turkey 101 too. Although I have to say, with this, there's definitely more complexity in the finish. It's long. It's a really, really long finish with the Kentucky Spirit. It's one of the reasons why I've always enjoyed this particular version of Wild Turkey 101, because some of the blends, depending upon, every single distiller and blender's they have a different ideology about this, but like the rick house down below might get warmer at certain times of the year than the barrels that are being stored in the rick house up top. Depending upon how many rick houses you have, and from some of the distilleries in Kentucky that I've been to, I've seen dozens of rick houses where they're aging hundreds of barrels. So to keep this in mind, you could have acres of rick houses around your distillery. And acres, sometimes some get more sunlight than others. Some rick houses are tall, while some rick houses are only built 1 or 2 levels high, so that there's less or more humidity, less or more heat. All of that has an influence on aging. And depending upon, this barrel that was, in direct sunlight, or that the rick house was in direct sunlight, or it had more humidity, we're going to blend more of that into this batch, or we're going to blend less of that into this batch, can influence the complexity and how something finishes. So it's nice, like this particular single barrel, and this was bottled on 5/4/21 from barrel 2080, 2,000 barrels, stored in warehouse F. That's F in the alphabet. That's a few letters in. Rick number 16. Just to give you an idea as to how many barrels might be in Wild Turkey. Also, nobody says that your rick houses have to be in the same place either. You can have a distillery and have a rick house somewhere else in the city that you're in. So that also affects the aging. But that's enough talky-talky. We went over through some bourbon stuff, so. I know Alec Bradley has the Magic Toast, but this is the original Magic Toast because it is all the bread, all the toast, all the cream and butter on top. This is Ecuadorian sun-grown wrapper over Dominican Republic binder and filler. And as I said, combination effort between the Fuente family and the Oliva family. And this cigar has one of the best intros of any cigar out there. It is just bread and butter. It is this is priming your palate to have dinner kind of cigar. This isn't really like the post-dinner cigar unless you get into like maybe some of the bigger ring gauges, but this Lonsdale right here, this is the priming for the meal. This is like your little appetizer before you go in for the big one. And the pepper notes on it, very nice mixture of baking spice along with a little bit of black pepper. Nothing too stinging on the nostrils, although once you do get about 5-10 minutes in, the pepper does pick up tremendously. And also touch of vanilla, more earthy notes, and then honestly, bourbon. Bourbon hits you in the second third of this cigar, carries you basically into the final third where the cinnamon, the pepper, and a little bit of rich leather reach the apex. The cigar remains medium to about medium plus the entire way through, at least for me it does. The bourbon, with all of its rich vanilla notes and long finish, the sweetness on it is really what drew me to bourbon for this pairing, because the VSG has little hints, especially when it first starts off and you light it, of that dry toast, maybe like a little bit of butter, a little bit of cream here and there, but it's still very dry. And that's what I would say about the Virgin Sun-Grown. It's kind of an arid smoke. It's a dry smoke. Even though it has creamy components and kind of like that nutty component and buttery components, it doesn't have a ton of sweetness to it. It's not anything that you would imagine is sweetened, has any molasses or anything like that going on, or honey. So the bourbon, little bit of extra kind of sweetness that comes through from that wonderful 101 corn-heavy bourbon whiskey from Kentucky, from the Russell family, and the long finish on it, it just complements the cigar tremendous. And I don't think that you really have to worry about the 101 proof. It's funny, I remember when I bartended, and even post-bartending, even when I was working just making cocktail menus and helping to consult, I remember people saying to me when I would put Wild Turkey 101 on their menu, like, oh, who's gonna buy Wild Turkey 101? It's 100, one proof. I'm like, well, if you do the math, really, most of your bourbons are like 90 proof. You're only adding maybe an extra 5% alcohol, and it carries through really well in cocktails. It is able to be utilized both in cocktail serves like Manhattans, Old Fashions, all that fun stuff. And then you can sip on it neat too, and it's gonna have enough body to stand up to some heavier components, but it's also not gonna be so overwhelming like a barrel proof, 120 proof, that you need to always dilute it with water, or you need to have it over the rocks, or or whatnot. So I just think that it's kind of perfect, and I think that there's a reason, I think the Russells are onto something and why they've kept most of the Russell's expressions as well as the Wild Turkey expressions at that kind of 100 proof. I mean, even bottle and bond whiskeys, it's a requirement that they're at 100 proof. And it was more so for authenticity back when bottle and bond was kind of like the thing, but it's also kind of how they distill things in Kentucky back in the day. And if you talk to Jimmy or Eddie, as I have about it, it's what they prefer to drink, and that's how they prefer to make whiskey. Bourbon specifically. And I think they're onto something. Anyway, I think that it's a fantastic pairing. $10 a stick for your Ashton VSGs, $24 per box, $240 total. Wild Turkey Kentucky Spirit, about $35 a bottle. Your regular 101 is even lower than that most liquor stores, so definitely a well-priced whiskey out there, nowadays especially. But I think that it's a perfect pairing. I think that you would really do yourself some good to try this out, not just with the VSG, but with several cigars. I think this is like one of the more cigar-friendly bourbon whiskeys that's out there. Thank you so much for watching. Please feel free to like, comment, subscribe below, as it helps to promote and grow the community. Feel free to reach out to me on Instagram @MasterYourAsh, and I will catch you next time for another cigar and bourbon review.